Abiodun, the governor of Ogun State. I want to thank Mr. Laki for that brief introduction. I'm sure most of you are wondering what is the governor of Ogun State doing with the major marketers and the Dapo and Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria. Well, like Mr. Laki said, I was the chairman of the marketers for several years, and that was the position I held until I became governor of Ogun State. And my role today was to facilitate the meeting between the marketers and Mr. President, because at the same time, I was also the chairman of the National Economic Council Subcommittee on Oil and Gas. So that was the reason why Mr. President had discussed with me on interfacing with marketers, and I, of course, promptly volunteered to facilitate this meeting. Again, I want to publicly also join others in appreciating our President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Nigeria, for the very bold and decisive decision to remove the subsidy on premium meteor spirits that we call petrol. This decision he took on his first day in office. I believe that that on its own was a very clear indication of his leadership, of his determination to rid Nigeria of this massive elephant that been a problem, that had caused us to hemorrhage for several years. A problem that preceding governments had contemplated but were unable to tackle. This problem, we all know, has become a 4 trillion naira per annum problem, to the point where we were becoming big brothers to our neighbors by subsidizing all the countries along, the West, the West African sub-region. So of course, we know that there will be associated issues. Like they say, there's no gain without some pain. The marketers have come today to solidarize with Mr. President, and the chairman of the marketers will share with you some of the details that ensued in the course of that meeting. But permit me to just say that for us as governors, we see this as a step in the right direction. We definitely solidarize with Mr. President. We stand by him in this policy. Since July of last year, when NNPC became a corporate organization, they have not put a penny into the Federation account. In fact, they were threatening that Federation will soon begin to write checks to NNPC. So this has affected states adversely. And we are confident that once this 4 trillion naira per annum burden is, out of the window, it would enhance, our faculty allocations as different states. And because of that, I'm sure you've all have seen what different states have begun to do in partnership and in support of this policy. Some states have reduced the number of days workers are coming to work from 3 to 4 days. Others have introduced different interventions. We want to call it interventions, not palliatives, because that word has been abused. But the truth is that those are immediate term and stopgap interventions. Some of us are looking at enhancement of minimum wage. Mr. President has announced today that NEC should immediately begin to sit, led by His Excellency the Vice President, Senator Kashim Shettima, and the committee of NEC alongside, with the economic team and marketers should sit down and come up with a wholesome approach that would be beneficial to the common man and generality of Nigerians. But in completeness, like I said, whatever it is we do today, be it a minimum wage increase, be it transport allowance, be it provision of any form of intervention, are only stopgaps. What we need to look at that will be sustainable will be, we need to begin to look at an energy transition, for the whole country, where we having appreciated the fact that we can no longer power our vehicles with either diesel at the prices or with petrol. We need to begin to look at what obtains in other countries, like Egypt, that's right here on the continent, where they have converted all their mass transit to run on CNG. In some other countries, their vehicles are running on either CNG or running on electricity. So these would be what would be sustainable, that would allow us to transport people, goods, and services at prices that are reasonable. So that is the kind of thing that we're looking at, the kind of discussion that we're having with the president, and the kind of approach that this administration is looking at in terms of sustainability. On that note, I will hand over the microphone to Mrs. Akpani to share with you the details of